Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Well, this Las Vegas shooting is absolutely terrifying. This is a cold, calculated killer. And this is the kind of thing that a lot of people either consciously or subconsciously worry about when out in public. Because you cannot, no matter what you do, you cannot secure every building, every window, every rooftop. You just can't do it without really restricting the daily ebb and flow and freedom of the population. Greetings, my friends. Welcome, Rush Limbaugh, and a brand new week of broadcast excellence here. The telephone number is 800-282-2882, and the email address lrushbaugh@eibnet.us. 58 people are now dead. 500 plus have been taken to hospitals after a shooting across, well, it was from the Mandalay Bay. There was a country concert across the street. Shooter on the 32nd floor. And had nothing in his way whatsoever. And I'm just going to tell you that the left is already, they are salivating, trying to politicize this. And before it's all over, it may end up having political motivations behind it. We don't know. We know that ISIS is claiming credit for it. We know that ISIS is claiming the shooter is a recent convert. We have to put that in some sort of context. Does ISIS have a history of falsely claiming responsibility for terror acts? And if they were to start falsely claiming responsibility, how would that affect them and, of course, their actions, which is a matter of importance to them? Now, the left, it's just unseemly. I mean, it didn't take them a half hour, and they started ranting and rolling about gun control now. And Tom Brokaw, Hillary Clinton, Mrs. Clinton, don't you think it's time that you stopped being a cliche? Don't you think it's time to stop being so predictable about it? Your comments are unworthy, they're unhelpful, they're just worthless. Stand up to the NRA. Hillary Clinton calls for gun control in response to Las Vegas shooting. This is a classic example of how gun control wouldn't matter. This guy's going to get a gun no matter what. Gun control does not keep guns out of the hands of the criminally intended or the criminally minded. And the gun doesn't hate anybody. The gun doesn't hate the national anthem. The gun doesn't the gun doesn't know anything. The gun is an inanimate object until it's picked up by somebody. And this is the thing the left doesn't want to deal with. It'd be really, really dangerous to start speculating here, but that doesn't hold them back, does it? It doesn't give them pause whatsoever. Here's a little bit Tom Brokaw. This was NBC's live coverage of the incident in Las Vegas before President Trump spoke. The former assistant director of the FBI, Sean Henry, said there's a lot of investigation to do, looking at who this guy was and who was he communicating with. We got to do that. Who do they find with the search warrants that indicates the motivation?
We're going to have to find out where he was able to get that kind of a weapon. You're not supposed to be able to buy that as a civilian, where you're on full auto and military rounds are being fired. Everybody goes to their far quarters, the NRA defending the right to own guns, people who want to eliminate all guns. We've got to find a way to talk about this in a reasonable fashion, and I would hope the president this morning would begin that discussion in a way that we can move forward together.
It's become a cliche. We have an incident involving race, and they say, we've got to start talking about it. That's all we've been doing is talking about it. Now, every time there's a gun incident, we've got to start talking about this, and we've got to get the president on the... We always talk about this. We talk and talk about the things that the left demands that we talk about. We're going to have to find out where he was able to get that kind of weapon. That's going to be incidental. If you ever find that out, it's going to be incidental to explaining this, unless, and here goes the speculation, unless ISIS is responsible for this and they found a way to get him the weapon, but I'm not even comfortable going there. We don't even know much beyond who the guy is, and his brother is out there saying, I'm just totally shocked. I have no idea. I didn't know my brother was capable. It's one of these guys that engages in this activity that nobody who knew him ever thought he was ever going to be capable of anything like this. Now, we are alive. We are living in a highly charged era. We are living at a time where there is rolling and rocking angst and nervousness. People don't even have a chance to breathe if they watch news anymore. If you watch the news, you're going to be constantly on edge. The odds are that you're going to be deeply pessimistic and or angry. And it's just impossible to get away from it. You can't even get away from it now, things that roil our culture, by turning into college or professional sports. That's not even a respite anymore. But Hillary Clinton, stand up to the NRA. This is hours after the deadliest shooting in U.S. history. Hillary Clinton tweeted a statement attacking the NRA and firearm suppressor laws. She asked followers to put politics aside in the wake of the attack and stand up to the NRA. That is politics, Hillary. You are injecting politics into this. The NRA doesn't have anything to do with this. We don't know that this guy was an NRA member. We don't know anything yet. But, man, they're setting the table. They just can't wait. Now, here's some of the latest news. Reuters is claiming that the Islamic State says the Las Vegas shooting is a result of a recent convert to Islam. The shooter was a recent convert. From the article, and again, this is Reuters, Islamic State has claimed responsibility for a shooting that killed at least 50, it's now 58 people, wounded over 500 in Las Vegas early today. Said the attacker had converted to Islam a few months ago. The Las Vegas attack was carried out by a soldier of the Islamic State, and he carried it out in response to calls to target states of the coalition. The group's news agency said, in reference to the U.S.-led coalition fighting ISIS in the Middle East. The Las Vegas attacker converted to Islam a few months ago. Now, that's from Reuters. Now, ISIS takes credit for mass shootings. We know that, but have they claimed credit falsely? That is, have they ever claimed something to be a Muslim terror attack that turned out not to be? I don't know. I'm asking the question honestly. I don't know if ISIS has made false claims that are on the record. The reason I ask is because everybody would like to know if what they're claiming here is credible. There have been so many of these kinds of attacks, it's hard to keep up. But somebody probably has to, somebody, Homeland Security, FBI, somebody knows whether or not ISIS routinely or sporadically makes false claims of responsibility. Now, get this. You know, this is, I'm half reluctant to even mention this. The Daily Caller has a story. A top legal executive at CBS, Haley Geftman Gold, said that she's not even sympathetic for the victims of the shooting at this festival at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. Quote, if they wouldn't do anything when children were murdered, I have no hope that Republicans will ever do the right thing. She wrote this on Facebook. Maybe she's referring to Sandy Hook on Facebook. She said, I'm actually not even sympathetic because country music fans often are Republican gun toters. This is a top legal executive at CBS, Haley Geftman Gold. That's hyphenated, Geftman Gold. How do you even think this way? But if this is accurate, if this is a post that she really wrote, it's a clear illustration of how the left politicizes and corrupts things. This is just outrageous. If she actually wrote this, if it's not some fake post written by somebody else in her name. She didn't mention that they might be Trump supporters, but that's the point. You know that people on the left are laying in wait, hoping, wondering if they'll have something with which to politicize this. Above and beyond all that, as I say, we live in an era. This is the deadliest mass shooting in American history. There are a lot of angry people in this country. And that suggests a question. Why are so many people angry? What are they doing that's making them mad? Is their anger, is it of natural origin? Is it organic? Did it bubble up inside them without any external influences? Or is the anger being generated? And if it is, by whom and for what reason? Now, you know where I'm going with this. For the last year, there has been an intense amount of undisguised, full-fledged hatred since the election last November. For almost a year now, that hatred has not abated. That hatred has metastasized, and it has intensified. And that hatred is widespread. And that hatred has created other hatred in response to it. So it feeds off of itself, and then, as I say, metastasizes. I'm not trying to say that the shooter doesn't bear responsibility in any way, shape, manner, or form. But I do know that the officials here, law enforcement and so forth, are desperately seeking a motive, because the fact that the guy's just evil and bad and did a horrible thing's not enough. There are people who want to know the specific reason, some legitimately for remedial purposes, others for selfish political reasons, which can't be denied. UK Independent just published an article with news that ISIS had taken credit for the attack. Basically says ISIS is quite disciplined, seems to be more right than we think. This is the UK Independent. Here's from the article: a simple tabulation of past claims of responsibility for attacks in the West show that ISIS has been surprisingly disciplined in only claiming attacks that they have either directed, enabled, or inspired. Rukmini Kalamaki, a New York Times correspondent focusing on ISIS and al-Qaeda, uttered those words to the UK Independent. In other words, we don't have much evidence. They make things up. When they claim responsibility, it pretty much has been true. They're surprisingly disciplined. They do not claim credit for things they had nothing to do with. Also from the article, and again, this is the UK Independent, making false claims would also leave ISIS open to accusations they claim attacks they've not committed, which, while spreading fear and dismay, would undermine trust among supporters. The group's Amaq news agency. Do you know ISIS has a news agency? It's like a PR firm, but they've got a news agency. The Amaq, EMAQ news agency, thrives on accuracy, said an expert on ISIS. He said some ISIS supporters told him they view the group's media as more accurate than Western reporting. So ISIS has its own news agency because they don't trust the American drive-bys to get it right. And you know why that is? Why do you think ISIS doesn't trust the American drive-bys? No, because they know that the American drive-bys do not want ISIS being credited with this stuff. The American drive-bys want other people to be blamed. The American drive-bys and the American left, there's no such thing as militant Islamic terrorism, right? There is no such thing. So when there is, American drive-bys do everything they can to avoid crediting militant Islamic terrorism with such acts. And I think we've even discussed this in the past about how this tends to irritate Al-Qaeda and ISIS. They go out and they commit terror acts, and the American drive-by media do not credit them when they claim it. And the reason they don't credit it is because it's an operative point in the Washington establishment that there is no such thing as militant Islamic terrorism. That was true in the Obama State Department. It was true at the Obama Defense Department. It was true at the Obama Department of Homeland Security. There was no such thing as militant Islamic terrorism, remember? Well, when there is, and ISIS is responsible for it, they get ticked off when they don't get credit. So they form their own news agency. We'll just have to wait. We'll come back. The president had a brief message for the country this morning. That comes up right after this. Here is the latest from the FBI. They claim they have found no connection to ISIS whatsoever. Aaron Rouse, press conference, Las Vegas.
As this event unfolds, we have determined to this point no connection with an international terrorist group. As this investigation continues, we will continue to work with our partners to ensure that this is factually, thoroughly, and absolutely investigated to be able to bring comfort and peace back to this community.
I've also been told that ISIS has falsely claimed credit for a terror attack on a casino in the Philippines, when in fact it was just an irate gambler who was down on his luck who engaged in action that killed 42 people. And ISIS tried to claim credit for that, so I'm told. President Trump, just before 11 o'clock today, addressed the nation. We have it in two sound bites. This is the first.
My fellow Americans, we are joined together today in sadness, shock, and grief. Last night, a gunman opened fire on a large crowd at a country music concert in Las Vegas, Nevada. He brutally murdered more than 50 people and wounded hundreds more. It was an act of pure evil.
It was, and it may be splitting hairs to say was it terrorism or not. The people at that event were indeed terrorized. This is mass murder. Terrorism, as defined by militant Islamic, we don't know yet, but this clearly was terroristic in its circumstance. Here's the next thing the president...
Hundreds of our fellow citizens are now mourning the sudden loss of a loved one, a parent, a child, a brother or sister. We cannot fathom their pain. We cannot imagine their loss. To the families of the victims, we are praying for you, and we are here for you. And we ask God to help see you through this very dark period. Melania and I are praying for every American who has been hurt, wounded, or lost the ones they love so dearly in this terrible, terrible attack. We pray for the entire nation to find unity and peace, and we pray for the day when evil is banished and the innocent are safe from hatred and from fear.
President Trump from the White House just a little over an hour and a half ago. We'll take a break and come back. The Puerto Rico story is still big. The NFL story is still big. A couple other things, too. All coming up. All right, some of the other things that are out there that we will get to. The NFL story is still percolating, and it's got some, to me, fascinating new angles to it. The Puerto Rico stack that I have here. This Puerto Rico stack is huge, and this is now off the front pages for a while. It was the left's effort to equate Trump with George W. Bush and Katrina, and it was blowing up in the left's face. We have the stack, and we'll get to it. There's also the NFL, there's one other thing out there as well, but I want to get to phone calls on the incident in Las Vegas right now. I don't want to move on to other things and then double back to phone calls with so much distance between the discussion of the subject and calls. So we'll stick with phones now. We have Brent east of Seattle on the phone. You're first today, sir. What do you want to say about this?
Well, I woke up this morning like a lot of Americans and heard that there had been this terrible shooting, and I turned on my local radio station in time for them to say that they had woke up also this morning and were very perplexed as to why this guy would do it, because he was obviously a white guy with privilege. And I found that very interesting that they were using social justice language immediately when they themselves admitted that they knew nothing about what was going on.
Well, do you listen to these guys regularly? Do they have a political persuasion readily identifiable?
No, that was what was so perplexing to me, because I live in central Washington, which is actually a fairly conservative area, and filled with traditional values and local folksy radio programs.
Yeah. Well, that's, connecting it to white privilege. This is what this is in a way what I was alluding to when the program opened. We are a roiled culture right now. And the more you spend time immersed in it, and that can include nothing more than watching the news, you're going to have to really have boundaries to be insulated if you don't want to be overtaken by it. You can be negatively impacted, made angry, depressed, what have you. If you pay any attention at all, you know that on college campi today, there are courses springing up everywhere about white guilt and white privilege. It's just tracking in the wrong direction. So if these guys, that was their first reaction to it, white guy shooting, white privilege, why would he be unhappy? No idea why, but it's a sign that, how immersive coverage of certain events in our culture is. Same thing happened to me. My routine in the morning is to get up and get out. Get up and get in here. I do not waste time turning on the TV. I don't turn on the radio. I don't check for latest news headlines on the phone. I get up, I get ready, and I get out of there in 15 minutes. So I'm driving in, and I get a text message from Catherine. And she alludes to this, assuming that I knew what it was about, and I didn't. And so I asked her to explain, and she did a little bit. So when I got here, I knew what had happened, but I didn't know any details. I didn't know numbers. I didn't know where. I just knew Las Vegas. And I can honestly tell you, folks, and this is just me, I didn't attach any what's the word? Preconceived. When I first heard about this, I didn't immediately conjure up a reason or a motive. I waited till I got here, until I could start gathering information to find out just factually what had happened. And then I slowly learned what was known, that nobody knew why the guy did it, which is the question right now. One thing that the sheriff has said is that there is no way this could have been prevented. No way. What the sheriff means by that, there's simply no way that we can have lookouts 24/7, anytime there's a public event, with telescopes and binoculars on every high-rise hotel room in the city. And we can't put armed guards in every room or in every hallway. So the guy knocks out a window on the 32nd floor, his weapon protruding. Nobody saw it because nobody was looking for it. And he was across the street. The guy was some distance away. The concert venue was across the street in the actual hotel, the Mandalay Bay. In the Mandalay Bay, if you've seen it, all of the windows look like they're covered in bronze. That's the tinting. So when one's broken or knocked out, it stands out like a sore thumb. But still, nobody saw a weapon protruding from them. There were two broken windows that I saw. It's kind of chilling when the sheriff says, no way it could have been prevented. But people are going to demand that it not happen again. People are going to demand. So what is law enforcement, what is government going to do to assure people they're doing everything they can to make sure it doesn't happen again? When the sheriff says they can't prevent it, the demand will be, well, you've got to. You got to do something. What are they going to do? No, I'm leaving it open-ended. You fill in the blank. Answer. We can all conjure up answers to the question. I appreciate the call, Grant, very much. Here's Joe in Louisville. Great to have you on the program, sir. Hello.
Hi, Rush. Thank you so much for everything that you do. Long-time listener.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Caller. So I just wanted to point out that within 12 hours, our FBI has announced that so far in this investigation, the shooter has no ties to ISIS, and almost 9 months into the Trump presidency, and we're still being told he may have ties to Russia.
That's I love going to the phones, and you people, some of the most creative, inventive, informed, educated. No, it's not even been 12 hours. You're right. Not even 6 hours, is it? How many hours is it? Approaching 12. And already we can conclusively say no evidence ISIS, but after a year, we're still not sure about Trump. When did you think of that? At what stage of this did that occur to you?
I was on my way into work this morning, and, my first initial thought is always, please don't let this be someone who is of Christian faith, which is really kind of crazy to me because it never is. But after I heard that ISIS had claimed credit, after you played that clip, I thought how strange it was that our FBI is already confident enough to say that this man certainly has no ties to ISIS, when they've only had 12 hours to really kind of look at who this person was.
Well, let me
hang
on just a second. Let me further muddy the waters by repeating something I said mere moments ago. All during the Obama presidency, there wasn't any such thing as militant Islamic terrorism. It wasn't that they wouldn't just say it. There wasn't any. The active position of the Obama government, including the State Department, the Pentagon, and the Department of Homeland Security, was that Islam is a religion of peace. And so there isn't any such thing as militant Islamic terrorism. They are a bunch of frauds or fakers or what. That was the official position of the Obama administration. We also know that the State Department has routinely, in the days of both terms of Obama, they issued white papers for Homeland Security, warning them that the most dangerous terror threats domestically were extreme right-wing groups. Do you remember this? I'm sure you do, having heard me mention it now. And I think one of those was who was it? Who was over at Homeland Security or State? It was a woman. I don't want to say Loretta Lynch, but it might have been. You have to be the Attorney General. Might have been somebody. I'll find out here in a second. I'll research this and look it up. But in both terms of Obama's presidency, there was a report issued internally that was made public by some law enforcement agent. It might have been State Department for Homeland Security, that the real danger when it came to domestic terrorism was not militant Islam, but rather extreme right-wing groups. I'm going somewhere with this, folks. Hang in there. Stick with me. So we know that there are many Obama embeds remaining and Clinton embeds remaining in various areas, levels of the bureaucracy, where that belief was official government policy, that there is no such thing as militant Islamic terrorism. That's why Trump made a big deal during the campaign of actually calling it out, and has called it out numerous times in official presidential speeches, statements, and remarks since being inaugurated. So my point is that at many levels of our government, there is a predisposition and a prejudice, maybe a bias, if you will, that militant Islamic terrorism is a false concept, that there isn't any such thing as militant Islamic terror. Now, people who believe that were responsible for articulating that as government policy. Many of them probably still there. And I'm telling you that there are still many who want that to continue to be the basis on which law enforcement and the rest of us proceed. The short version of this is that there are a lot of people who, the moment this happens, can't wait to say it is not militant Islamic terrorism because they don't want it to be, because they have said there isn't any. And so our caller here from Louisville points out that they're able to claim with relative certitude in a matter of hours that there's no evidence to suggest any association with ISIS. But despite no evidence in over a year, they are still trying to pin Trump's election to collusion with Russia. It's an interesting point. We'll come back after this with much more. Don't go away. Janet Napolitano, that's who it was. Janet Napolitano back in April of 2009. She was the Secretary of Homeland Security. She released an intelligence assessment that listed returning veterans among terror risks to the U.S. Remember? And this is Obama's first year in office. Janet Napolitano issued warnings about returning military veterans as potential terrorists and extreme right-wingers. That report was out there for a long time, and they eventually pulled it, but that didn't matter. It was a window to their mind. We found out exactly what they think. Meanwhile, actual militant Islamic terrorism was being denied. It was being categorized and called something else. Even militant Islamic terror attacks that everybody knew that they were claiming credit for. They were, no, it's not militant Islam. Islam is not militant. It's dangerous religion of peace. And so they have the Obama embeds, the Obama types. The Democrats have a bias, my friends, against anybody concluding that militant Islam has anything to do with terrorism. Now, I want to play a little mind game with you based on the caller from Louisville. This guy had an interesting point. He said, we haven't even been 24 hours yet, and law enforcement is already ruling out ISIS. We haven't found any evidence, no evidence of ISIS, militant Islam. There's no evidence of a terror attack, not even 24 hours. But in over a year, without any evidence that Trump and Putin and Russia colluded, they're still hunting. And they will not say, unless you dig deep in newspaper stories and find the one sentence, thousands of words story, that they have found no evidence, but it doesn't stop them. So imagine. Now, ISIS has claimed responsibility, and law enforcement said, no, we haven't found any evidence that ISIS has anything to do with it. Play game here. Imagine if Vladimir Putin issued a claim of responsibility, just like ISIS has done today. But instead, Putin claimed responsibility, saying he and Trump did conspire to rig the election to help Trump win. Imagine Putin would say this. We're playing a game here. Would the FBI say, now, wait a minute, you can't credit that because we have no evidence of it, and after all, Putin could be lying. My point is this. ISIS claims credit. American law enforcement puts its foot down. Nope. We don't have any evidence. No. Let's say Putin says, guess what, gang? I'm going to claim responsibility. I'm going to take all this pressure off. Trump and I did collude to rig the election. Would the FBI say, nope, Nope, we have no evidence. No, they would run to it. They would embrace it. They would say, finally, Putin and Trump own up, or Putin owns up. The point is, it all depends on what you want the outcome to be here. It depends on what you want, what you hope explains this. This is what I mean by you can't. It's distressing, folks, to think that there isn't an uncorrupted institution left in America. Has everything been corrupted now? In order to advance a political agenda? Has NASA been corrupted? Has NOAA been corrupted? The Weather Service been corrupted by climate change? The FBI corrupted by desired outcomes? Some to be guilty, some not to be? Have we so corrupted law enforcement that we've said for so long there's no such thing as militant Islamic terrorism that even when there is, we have to deny it? I'm just asking, but this is what I meant earlier. And now that's what's so distressing about all these former escapes from all this, now suffering the same influences and corruption. In the meantime, a brief, obscene profit break here. First hour in the can, almost. Be right back. Hey, here's a quick question. We got a caller that's going to ask this, but I'm going to steal a guy's thunder because I've got some time to kill here. What would you think? And we'll still go to the caller. We'll reward him. I could steal the idea. Nobody would know but him. But I'm going to credit the guy. What do you think about a similar type of TSA security at hotels? Before you can get up to your room, you got to go through the same kind of thing you have to get on an airplane. You would support that? I need something like that. Okay, we'll see. Back in a second. Well, I have just stumbled across something that's a little interesting to me here that combines a couple of issues that otherwise would not be related. Happy to have you here, my friends. It's Rush Limbaugh and the most listened to radio talk show in America, the EIB Network, Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies, Anti-Leftist Studies, and Anti-Media Studies. No graduates, no degrees. The learning never ends. 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. Okay, I wasn't going to mention this until we had finished or completed our discussion of the event in Las Vegas. However, I'm going to mention it. There is an NFL game tonight. The Washington Redskins, the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are the undefeated team, and the Redskins are playing much better than anybody forecast. ESPN had announced that they were not going to televise the national anthem. You should also know this, that John King, CNN, yesterday said that he knows for a fact that the owners and the NFL know full well ratings and attendance are down because of Kaepernick. They know it. They are denying it in public, but they know it. There was an incident in Baltimore, the Steelers and Baltimore, that I can't wait to get into, but it's not time yet. But in light of what happened in Las Vegas, ESPN has changed its mind and has announced that they are going to televise the anthem. They weren't going to televise the anthem tonight. Why do you think that is? I'll tell you why it is. The partnership that exists between the networks that televise NFL games and the league, I mean, there's a lot of money that goes back and forth. Well, I'm sorry, a lot of money that goes one way, networks to the NFL. But the NFL and the networks both have a vested interest in audience increasing, attendance going up, TV viewership going up. They know why attendance is down, and shrinking, and they know why TV ratings are down. They will not admit it in public, but they know these anthem protests and the whole Kaepernick thing and disrespecting the country are the reason. It's not the election. It's not any of the other things that they've said. They know it. They just won't admit it publicly. So since they can't get the players to cooperate, they would love it if the players would shelve this and just stand. Just stand for whatever it takes. A couple of minutes, stand up for the anthem. Just do it. Find some other way to express your disgust and your angst and your anger at whatever social injustice you think there is. But the players are insisting because they're I don't know who's running the players, but it's some leftist malcontent group. It has to be. And they are players that otherwise nobody would know are acquiring fame. They used to never even televise the anthem. That was a standard commercial break up until Kaepernick, up until last year. The anthems were never televised at the Super Bowl. So they were not going to televise the anthem tonight. That was going to be a way of denying the malcontents their stage. The malcontents would still kneel, protest, or whatever, but it wouldn't be on live TV. There'd still be still shots of it, and there would be video of it later, but it wouldn't be part of the live broadcast. But now ESPN has come along because of the horrific news of the shooting at a Las Vegas concert. ESPN's reversed course and will broadcast the national anthem that precedes a Monday night game between the Redskins and the Chiefs, as well as the moment of silence that'll take place in Arrowhead Stadium. In a reversal of course, one that reflects the network's decision to remain nimble as far as showing the anthem during this season of Monday Night Football, it had intended to return to its new normal practice of not showing the anthem until 58 people were killed and more than 500 injured in the shooting in Las Vegas. Okay, I, ladies and gentlemen, have a question. Why has ESPN changed its mind? They weren't going to televise the anthem, but now 58 people and counting are dead. Over 500 wounded. And ESPN's, you know what? Change of course. We are going to televise the anthem. Why? Why are they going to do this? Well, no, stop and think about this. Why does the media support the displays of protest? The media loves this. You have to understand, sports media, news media, they love the players who kneel, who sit, who do not stand for the anthem. That's news. We have some people protesting America. That's news to the news media. They eat that up. Because in their world, that's what the grievances, everybody has these grievances. And in their little bubble of a world, they don't think the players are outliers. They think the players represent a majority of things because that's how the media themselves think. So stick with me on this. If your point of view is that America is flawed, is deeply flawed, if America is rife with injustice, social injustice, economic injustice, all kinds of injustice, wouldn't an event like this prove it, that America is flawed, that somebody would engage in a mass shooting? Why are they going to turn around and play the anthem? Now, you may think the answer is obvious to you. Well, Rush, come on. I mean, there's going to be a moment of silence, first responders, honoring the dead. Yeah, but all of that's part and parcel of what is being protested. All of a sudden now it's going to be honored. Why? What's different here? No big deal. I'm just pointing out what I think is a little hypocrisy. I'm glad they're going to televise the anthem. Don't misunderstand. Well, we'll see what happens now. We'll see how many people kneel. We'll see how many people take a knee, sit on the bed. Marshawn Lynch, the Oakland Raiders, Who'd they play? They played the Broncos yesterday. When the Raiders arrived, Marshawn Lynch had some T-shirt, some anti-Trump T-shirt on, and a bunch of people tried to cover him while he was walking to the locker room so nobody would see it. Officials, Raiders officials, somebody tried to shield Marshawn Lynch and his T-shirt from the cameras. Thought it wouldn't look good. Okay, the guy's showing in, it's us versus Trump, or I forget what the T-shirt said. I've got it here in the stack, but... Was it that's what it was, everybody versus Trump. But they did, whoever it was thought, we know that's not going to be helpful here for our guy to be seen wearing that shirt. They tried to cover it up. Because everybody knows this is hurting the NFL, which is the objective. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have received the thoughts of a professional who asks to remain anonymous, a professional in analyzing the personalities, mindset, and so forth of people like our shooter here in Las Vegas. And I just want to share with you his thoughts. He's requested anonymity, and I'm happy to offer it and provide it. You might have heard of him. He's a writer. But he has researched this for his work. And basically, he thinks that an element of this, not the explanation total or complete, but an element of this is that too many people in our society do not take responsibility for how their lives turn out. It's not just they don't accept personal responsibility. It is they don't think they have anything to do with how their lives have turned out, and they become embittered. He says, I have studied these cases. Clearly, this was premeditated slaughter. If the pattern holds, and we don't know yet that it will, but if the pattern holds, we will likely find out this guy's life was coming apart, that he scapegoated society or others for his problems and failures and his hopelessness, and that he decided to get even and go out in a blaze of glory. It's the same nihilistic evil again and again, blaming others for your problems and seeking to sow destruction in revenge against the unfairness and injustice of it all. This sounds like it would apply to the guy that shot the Republicans practicing for baseball, Steve Scalise, and others. He was embittered and enraged. He says, I don't know if we'll ever be able to stop people from seeing themselves as victims of society, who then get angrier and angrier and want to strike back. But a healthy society does not encourage an outlook of grievance and helpless victimization, but ours does. People who take personal responsibility for their lives do not do these kinds of things. Those are the thoughts from my expert. And I think there's a lot of truth there. We know that we live in a grievance society where grievance has become its own form of politics. It's spreading. Grievance is taught on many college campi. Grievance is always treated as justified. Well, I take that back. If you are a white male or a white Christian, your grievance probably will not carry the weight of others. But for the most part, those who have grievance and incorporate politics into their grievance generally are always said to be justified. In fact, I might say that one of our political parties has actually, as a matter of strategy, tried to create as many victims of whatever as they can, and this party has then presented itself as the solution, the answer. And, of course, the problem with victimology, the problem with victimhood is once you adopt it, once you accept that you're a victim, a lot of things happen. You are immediate, in your own mind, you are free of blame. You are free of responsibility. And you also are free in believing you don't have a chance at succeeding or achievement or accomplishment because the deck's stacked against, because you're a victim. It's a made-to-order political profile for a political party which seeks to gain power on the backs of such people. It's not your fault. We'll fix those who did this to you. We'll get even with those who did this to you. So you adopt that you're a victim of something. You are a generational victim of slavery. You're a generational victim of masculinity. You are a victim of male patriarchy. You are a victim of extreme right-wing politics, whatever. Once you adopt it, once you accept it, once you yourself admit and acknowledge that you're a victim, you are immediately saying you have no responsibility for yourself and you have no ability to triumph. Because no matter how hard you try and how hard you work, the deck is always going to be stacked against you. It's a very artful, and for the Democrat Party, it's a very successful political strategy to create as many victims as you can and then group them. And then acknowledge their grievance and then promise to get even. Here's what happens, though. They somehow never get the satisfaction of whoever it is that did whatever was done to them. There never is any revenge. The party claims they're going to get even. But it never happens. The people that you end up blaming continue to live and continue to live prosperously or happily or whatever ways in which you don't live. And so your anger festers and your resentment festers. And all of that is used as a political advantage by the party which encouraged you to accept the fact that you're helpless and not responsible because powerful forces have been arrayed against you. It's a recipe for unhappiness. It's a recipe for what is said here. Scapegoat society or others for your failures, your hopelessness. And it builds and builds and builds and builds and builds to the point you got to get even. And you take mental instability, throw it in the mix. Well, when the rush, why doesn't everybody grab a gun and start? That's the point here. Not everybody is unstable. Anyway, folks, it's interesting stuff to think about. I have to take a break. We'll come back and resume with your phone calls right after this. Well. The Daily Caller with an interesting dispatch here. The shooter's name is Stephen Paddock. P-A-D-D-O-C-K. His brother is Eric Paddock, lives in Florida, says this is horrible for them. Had no idea. Please don't blame my mom. Had nothing to do. But he said, the shooter's brother said that their father was Patrick Benjamin Paddock, a bank robber who was on the FBI most wanted list. And I've got a copy here of the actual most wanted list profile of Patrick Benjamin Paddock, and it says at the bottom of it that he was psychopathic. The brother says that Stephen Paddock, he wasn't religious, he wasn't political, he wasn't anything. We don't understand this. Back to the phones. Calvin, Traverse City, Michigan. Glad you waited, sir.
Yes, sir.
What's up? What's happening?
How you doing? Thanks for taking my call. I'm going to be quick with my point, or more of a concern, really. What do you think of the idea of maybe like a check bag for hotels? I mean, they essentially, assuming there was a bellhop.
You mean like metal detectors to check into a hotel room?
Yeah, right. They essentially rolled his luggage up to the 30-second vantage point for him. I mean, how long until we start seeing a TSA in this
do we know? Wait a minute now. Do we know that a bellman was involved in taking the guy's luggage up to the room?
No, sir. I should probably retrace that. But I mean, it's just kind of a weird point to think this guy could haul up what?
I mean, what if the guy put the gun disguised in a bag of golf clubs?
There's any number of ways probably shooting car. Anyway, that was my point. I was just curious what you thought about that.
No, I get. He's asking the question: do we need a TSA type screening operation for people checking in hotels? Should you have to be felt up? You have to take off your shoes, no toothpaste, none of the whatever the restrictions are. Should you have to go through a thorough check of your luggage and you before you are allowed to check into your room or suite? Where overseas do they have the Philippines? Okay, Philippines. You've had your luggage checked going into the Philippines hotel. Okay. Well, if they do it in the Philippines, then I mean, how can we not? But this is something's going to happen. They can't post guards for every room and window in a hotel, every rooftop. These kinds of things do trigger a response from law enforcement. Got to take a break, folks. Be back with much more right after this. I've had some people emailing asking if we're going to be talking about the Friday night portion of my interview with Sean Hannity. Yeah, we are, but I don't know that we're going to get to that today, folks. Well, we have an hour and a half left. We'll see how things play out. But it's as always, it's improv and spontaneity, and it'll be guided and influenced by my instincts. We've got a whole stack here on the effort being made by the media and backed by the Democrat Party to try to somehow blame Trump for what is and is not happening in Puerto Rico. And we need to blow that to smithereens. This situation down there, you talk about politicizing something. Local officials down at one in particular is responsible for so much of it. The San Juan mayorette. But I don't want to get into that yet because once I start, I'll stick with it, and we need to put that off to the other side here. And then, of course, the NFL circumstance. What happened in Baltimore yesterday is not just what happened in Baltimore. It's fascinating, but the way the media, it's classic how they don't understand the average, ordinary American. It's classic. And we'll get to it eventually. I'm going to tell you what happened. Well, the players kneeled, and then they stood for the anthem, and the PA announcer had some... The fans booed the PA announcer, and the media doesn't understand why. They think the fans of Baltimore are reprobates for what they did, and they haven't the slightest idea why the fans booed the PA announcer. The media thinks the fans were booing prayer, and that's not what was happening. These are the same people that still to this day cannot understand why 10 people, much less 60 million, voted for Donald Trump. It's classic. But we still have people who want to weigh in on Las Vegas. Here is Christine in Nashville, Tennessee. Welcome. Glad you called. You're next.
Thank you. I know you touched on this earlier about the left winger who went and shot up the Republican baseball players. Being from the Tennessee area, knowing a lot of country music fans, overwhelmingly country music fans that I know, can't speak for everybody, are either conservative or blue dog Democrats who would have voted for Trump. Just putting that out there.
What do you mean? Wait a minute. Now, well, let's define terms. Some people use Blue Dog Democrats affectionately, and some use it as a derision. How do you mean Blue Dog Democrats?
I think they're more conservative, more fiscally responsible.
Okay, so we call Reagan Democrats.
Okay, Reagan Democrats.
Right.
So, gun control has fallen off the media scope. This guy coming in here using this automatic weapon will pull that back in, and he'll get to take out some conservatives and Reagan conservatives, or Reagan Democrats. I know his brother said he wasn't political at all, but obviously he didn't know him very well. So that was a thought I had. I don't know if I'm just way too
Wait a minute now.
paranoid.
Wait a minute. I want to understand what you're actually saying. Are you saying, correct me if I'm wrong here, are you saying that the audience, the crowd, was at a country music concert, and therefore most of the people were probably conservative or lean to the right, or be, as you call them, Reagan Democrats, and so you're looking at this as a bunch of those kind of people get shot at a country concert, and so you're thinking, well, the shooter might have a bias or an animus against such people. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
That these people were targeted because of their perceived political preferences? Is that what you're saying?
Possibly. That was a thought I had, because that's how the media has pushed everybody. Nobody can be just American anymore. You can't be American anymore. You either have to be conservative or liberal, and if you're conservative, you're wrong. That's how I see it.
If you're conservative from the South, like country music, you're all kinds of potential wrong.
Yes.
You sound like a hick. You came from states that had slavery. That's your point, right? That
yes, that's my point. I mean, it may be off the wall, but that was one of my first thoughts was,
well, they're saying they haven't got a motive yet, so your theory's as good as anybody else's until we know for sure. But I just want to make sure I understand what you're thinking, that this guy actually might have targeted people because of what he thought their political beliefs would be, which would then say that he obviously has some political leanings, even though his brother says that he wasn't religious or political at all, and this is a total shock.
Well, he doesn't know his brother. Obviously doesn't know his brother. If he knew his brother, he'd have seen all the red flags going up.
You think so?
I hope that if I was in the situation where someone I was close to was going off the rails, that I would notice.
Well, the brother lives in Florida.
Didn't he live in Florida too?
At the time, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so he we need more backstory on this.
Okay, so you're also saying that you don't think a guy who seemed perfectly harmless and normal one day picks up an automatic gun and slaughters 50-plus people. That you would know somebody is...
Well, he's obviously nuts. But there could be more motivation to it than that.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
Yeah, it's fascinating that you're linking the kind of concert, country concert, with the audience you would assume gathered there. And
yes, and he waited for he wasn't Jason Aldean the final performer, the big headliner?
Yeah. It was
waited for him to come on so that the crowd would be at its largest.
Right.
Yeah.
So you think
it's
so it's meaningful that the guy didn't try to take out people attending a rock and roll concert. You think
yes, to me, yes.
All right, we'll put that in the hot. Christine, I'm glad you called.
Okay, thank you.
No, seriously, thanks very much. Dan in Kingman, Arizona, your turn. Hello.
Rush.
Yeah.
An honor and a privilege to finally get through to you. I've listened to you for years daily.
Thank you,
sir. I have a comment on what happened in Las Vegas.
Yes, sir.
Comment of what Sheriff of Clark County, Las Vegas, his comment on this could not have been prevented.
Yes, sir, he said that.
That was very disappointing to hear. I believe with today's technology and being in munitions in a plant myself for 25 years, running a munitions plant, that the amount of long guns and ammunition that the media made it sound like this guy had taken to his room, that with all the cameras and the technology we have, this couldn't have been done in one trip. That guy was there for 3 days. He had to make multiple trips with heavy luggage. I mean, it had to be somehow apparent, and if he was on a camera with facial recognition and was seen over and over again bringing in more and more stuff, this had to be multiple trips he made to get all that up there. It was just disappointing to hear the sheriff say that alone could not be prevented.
You think that alone should have aroused somebody's attention, that this guy doesn't stop taking luggage up there? And I'm sure you're thinking they've got cameras in the hallways of the hotel, and this activity of just loading whatever he had into his room off the elevators could have been seen.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been a repeated process of him repeatedly bringing things in,
Okay, so what do you think in a circumstance like this?
Somebody was helping him.
In a circumstance like this, where let's say he was under surveillance, you've got the security people at the hotel, and we know that casinos are overrun with cameras. So somebody paying attention to this guy didn't arouse any attention, but let's say it did. Why should they assume that in this big collection of luggage is ammunition and weapons?
Well, I'm not saying that somebody is monitoring him. Computer data can be monitoring him. Computer data could throw up a red flag that this guy has been in and out so many times with all this luggage, goes in with luggage, out with nothing, in with luggage. You see my point? That the way technology is these days, that he could have been red flagged by a computer, not by a person.
Well, but the red flag that would have all had to have been written in the security system. If you want security to be flagged with repeated numbers of luggage entering the same room, you're going to have to write that and have it for technology to trigger it, other than have a human being or a series of with eyeballs on every camera watching everything that's happening at every minute. But for that, you're going to have to make assumptions. You have to sit there and assume, okay, one day we're going to have a guy get in here with a giant bunch of ammunition and a weapon. So we want to program into our security system a notification and an alert when we think this is it. Somebody would have to think that way. Not saying it could easily be done, but somebody would still have to think of that in order to write the code that would trigger that kind of alert. But still, despite that, Dan here is alarmed that the sheriff is saying it could not have been prevented. He obviously thinks that it could have been, or future events like it could be. Look, folks, I'm not going to mention specifics because I don't want to ever be responsible for giving ideas to anybody, but I'm sure if I did, you would probably, I've thought of that too. Why hasn't something like that happened yet? Take this event and move it from a hotel to any other event where there is a huge crowd. And I will tell you, I have been pleasantly surprised that something like this, mass shooting from off-site, has not. Well, everybody's looking for bombs and sniffing for explosives. I mean, there are a lot of events out there where people are just wide open targets. As I say, I'm not going to mention them. I don't want to be accused ever of giving anybody ideas. I must take another brief obscene profit break. We'll do that and continue after this. Meeting and surpassing all audience expectations every day. Rush Limbaugh, the EIB network. And I don't do television very much, but every time I do it, I must admit to being surprised by some of the feedback I get. And let me tell you what some of the surprising feedback I've got. Snerdley walked in here today. He said, you won't believe this. I said, I bet I will. He said, I have a friend, African-American, who knows who you are, never listened on the radio because you're all these horrible, rotten things, saw you on Hannity, can't believe what a great guy you are. Can't believe you think exactly what, was it a she or a he? Can't believe it's exactly what she thinks. And she was she was stunned because it was nothing like what she had been led to believe or thought, combination of led to believe and thought on her own. Is that pretty much accurate? Is that her reaction? Did she say she was going to start listening now or just blown away? You know why this stuff, it surprises me? I mean, look, it's 29 years. It's some, I guess, false impressions and images have a long lifespan. But I've run into a couple of reactions, like not from the actual people who had them, people like you telling me that they knew people who, of course, knew who I am. I'm almost too famous to go on TV, to tell you the truth. And they know me, of me, but they don't know me, and they watched it, and they were stunned. And I got to tell you, that's still surprising. 29, isn't 29 years long enough to learn the truth about somebody? At any rate, back to the phones. This is Donna in Winter Haven, Florida. I'm glad you waited. You're next here on the EIB network. Hi.
Hi, Rush. Thank you. I've listened to you speak my mind for years, and I thank you from all of us who agree with me. And the main reason I was calling was to say, if the shooter lived, he would have received his rights. The dead and injured would have no rights. I think it's best that we kill the shooters because it should start making them think twice. They're not going to get any publicity, and they lose their life. I'm sure that this shooter probably had some kind of a disease or something, and he was a victim. He wanted to get even with the world for the fact that he got, cancer, something like that. So wait. Autopsy.
Hold it a minute. Do we know that he had cancer, or are you just speculating?
No, I'm thinking they ought to do an autopsy and find out if maybe Soros or their liberals paid him off, and he took the money because maybe he was dying.
See,
he figured he'll go take somebody with him.
I'm fascinated to hear how people think. Let me one thing here. You think that the shooters, knowing they're going to die, would maybe provide a little bit of incentive for them not to do it? That they're not going to get any fame. They're going to get fame. Fame is a poison to people who don't have it and want it. Do not doubt me on this. It is such a poison that some people will die to get it. And they will tell themselves over and over before they do what's going to get them killed. I'm going to be famous. I'm going to be famous. People are finally going to know me. Killing them, I think many of them are prepared for that, are willing to die if their grievance is such that they want it known, and they want it known that they're getting even, and if they're going to become famous. I don't know. A lot of profilers, professional profilers, will say, no, we want to take these people live because we want to get to the motivation. We want to understand why they did it. Now, a lot of people, the hell with understanding why they did it. It doesn't matter. They did it. There's no justification. So if you want to know why for scholarly research, fine. But if you want to know why for remedial purposes in others, don't waste your time. Because some people just can't accept that there is natural evil. A lot of people think everybody is innocent and clean and pure as the wind-driven snow until something poisons them or ruins them. And that's not true. There is pure evil. Born that way, and there's nothing you can do about it. Okay, if you want to continue to talk about this via the phone calls of the program, have at it, feel free, but I'm going to start getting into some other things here. News in other areas of life in America happened over the weekend about which I wish to comment, and I'm sure you wish to hear. And we are back. Great to have you here, my friends, as we kick off and inaugurate yet another full week of busy broadcast excellence. Hosted by me, America's real anchorman and truth detector and doctor of democracy. Your guiding light. Rush Limbaugh behind the golden EIB microphone. Our telephone number is 800-282-2882. By the way, you know what? I was going to do this first thing out of the box here, but the event and incident in Las Vegas sidetracked me. But I wanted to take a moment here and thank from the bottom of my heart Sean Hannity for his... He was here, his whole crew was in here last Thursday, and they were here for about an hour and a half. And everybody was kind of like a reunion. The Commie Babe makeup artist from my TV show, Deborah, was here. And Sean, my niece, who is on Sean's staff, and as he says, is she's just knocking it out of the park, he says. And we're all so appreciative of that. But the things that he said about me during the course of that interview, I didn't realize it all till I was watching it. When you're in the middle of being interviewed, you're aware of it, but your attention's all, okay, where is this going? You know, what's the question from this going to be? And it was till I watched it on Friday night, and noted how overwhelmingly well he treated me. It was. I'm not used to it. I'm not used to all of the nice things that he said, and I just wanted to take a moment here and offer a sincere thank you to Sean personally and to the whole Fox crew that were here. Now, people have asked about the ratings. You know, folks, I'm not the one to tell you, but they were really, really, really good. Sean's average total audience, I don't think this counts DVD replay, DVRs, I'm not sure. And I think it's the live audience for the 9 o'clock show. It might be including a midnight replay, but I don't think so. Just the live hour. His average audience for the week was 3.4 million, and Thursday night we had 3.75 million. It was the top night of the week. I don't know what Friday's numbers were. The week is considered Monday, Thursday, because Friday is not a school night, as they say. You know, people are out and about smoking weed, getting drunk, and debauchery and that kind of stuff. Not as home. At home as much. But it was good. It was everything about it was just first class, and it was enjoyable. It was fun, and I just wanted to offer sincere thanks to Sean. He said some incredibly supportive and nice things, and well, yes, they have the added benefit. They have the added benefit of being true. And they are never said. Snerdley's in here coaching me on what to say. Yeah, nobody ever says it either, except Sean did. That's the point. So it was. I think it exceeded. I don't know what expectations were ratings wise, but I think it exceeded them. It was the high for the week, which everybody's gratified by it, but I don't know if you can tell, I'm kind of a little nervous being the one to say so. It's been published, but in trade publications. And in the trade publications, they acknowledge they can't ignore that I was there. But that's about as far as they go. Because in the trade, they're not happy with the result. They're not happy with Hannity being number one over MSNBC, and they're really not happy that I had anything to do with it, to whatever even small degree. Okay, now, to the National Football League, and particularly in Baltimore. Yesterday was rivalry day for the Steelers and the Ravens. It may be the best rivalry in the NFL at this moment in time. It has lost some of its fervor because the Ravens suck. They've had a lot of injuries. They're not the team. I said that trying to be funny. They don't suck. They're not the team that they have been the past couple of years. The Steelers may not be either. Time will tell. It was still intense, however, and the pregame featured both teams, I think, both teams kneeling, sort of the Ravens did, and then rising and standing for the national anthem. And yet the fans in the stadium booed. And the sports media is beside itself. They don't understand. They think they know why, and they think it was horrible. Now, I want to play for you the fans booing. This does not contain, I don't believe it's only, maybe it does. They booed the PA announcer. That much the media understands, but they totally misunderstand why. So let's listen. It's 14 seconds here. Let's see what this actually is. All right, so they're good. There's no PA announcer, right?
Thank you.
Okay. Well, the PA announcer in Baltimore asked the crowd to pray for kindness, unity, equality, and justice. And that's when the crowd booed. And the sports drive-bys don't have any idea why. They think it is reprehensible. One sports drive-by said the crowd booed players bowing their heads in prayer. No, they weren't booing the players. But they might have been booing the players if the players were kneeling at any point. They might have been booing them, and they might have been booing the players if the players linked arms instead of hand over heart. It reached peak hilarity Sunday in Baltimore when the PA announcer asked the crowd to pray for kindness, unity, equality, and justice in America. The Ravens dropped to one knee and bowed their heads in prayer, and the audience started booing. This was before the anthem, before they got to playing the anthem. And the sports drive-bys are beside themselves thinking, oh, my God, this is horrible. This is horrible. Fans are just so in a frenzy here, they don't even know why they're booing. But, boy, when you boo prayer, whoa, that's it. Now, how many of you think, based on what I just told you, what you've heard, that the fans were booing prayer? You think so, Mr. Snerdley? Okay, I don't have anybody on the other side of the glass who thinks the fans were booing prayer. Remember now, this is Baltimore. Now, all I mean by that is that Baltimore is not known for its right-wing conservative republicanism. So if they weren't booing prayer, what were the fans booing? Folks, I happen to think that if you're at the football game and you're expecting some kind of controversy over the anthem and the flag and players kneeling or not, linking arms, showing respect for the flag or not, and when it's time to play the anthem, when you expect the PA announcer to say, please rise as we honor America, and here's so-and-so singing our national anthem. And instead, what you hear is a bunch of left-wing tripe. Let us pray for kindness, unity, equality, and justice. I mean, that is pure left-wing social justice warrior language. And I am convinced that that's what the fans were reacting to. They resent that intrusion into the game. But the sports drive-bys, this proves my point that the media makes the mistake of thinking that everybody thinks like they do. That every intelligent person, that every reasonable person, that every educated person, that everybody who knows what's what thinks like they do. And so the PA announcer asking for people to pray for kindness and unity and equality and justice in America. Now, individually, those are, unity, but unity is a red flag anyway. Unity has become a left-wing term, just like diversity has. And it doesn't mean what they mean. Unity means you agree with them or else. Unity does not mean we are all unified in one patriotic belief. Unity means that you will agree with the left. You will agree with the social justice warrior types. You will love it. Or else. Equality, they might as well throw in sustainability in there. Now, it's also possible that the fans were booing because there were some players kneeling. I don't know if there were or not. I didn't watch. I don't know if the Steelers said they were going to stand, but I don't know if they all kneeled before the anthem was played. But I think fans that are upset at all of this recognize that language as divisive language. It's not the language of let's all pray for kindness, unity, equality. That's in essence a criticism. That's how the left criticizes the country. There is no unity and there is no equality and there is no justice, and that's why all this stuff is happening. And people resent it. I don't think I'm wrong about this. Now, there is a related story. It's the Ravens linebacker C.J. Mosley was not surprised when the hometown fans booed at M&T Bank Stadium. He said he wasn't surprised while the Ravens took a knee Sunday before the national anthem, but the actions of the crowd, he said, did show him something. Quote, even though it was supposed to be a silent prayer, it was mainly boos. But it goes to show that it has nothing to do with the anthem. We stood up for the anthem because we respect the flag and respect the veterans and everything that got misconstrued with us taking a knee last week. Now, Mr. Mosley, I know that you are an intelligent man, but you have to understand the fans are not as dumb as you think. The fans know what these kneelings and the lack of respect is. It is to support Colin Kaepernick. And Colin Kaepernick was very clear about why he was not going to stand and salute the flag and do the anthem, because he doesn't think this country treats minorities fairly and equally. It was an anti-America position that he took, and that's why and the players now trying to say that this is not about the flag, it's not about it most certainly is. Kaepernick made about that, and the fans are very much aware of this. And one other bit of news that I want to repeat. Of all people, John King, somebody at CNN, announced on his Sunday show on CNN yesterday that he knows that the owners and the league know that they are losing viewers and attendance is down because of these protests. The league publicly will not admit that. The league's tried to say, well, it was the election and the Trump campaign. Then they tried to say it was Hurricane Irma, and they've tried to say it was Christmas shopping and it was climate change and it was anything other than that. They still haven't admitted why. And attendance was down and viewer ratings were down this past weekend, too. According to preliminary numbers, it was down again. Now, the thing to watch next, we've already had some sponsors pull out, but they're regional. The next thing to watch is to see if any of the highfalutin national sponsors of NFL telecasts or of the NFL enterprise, the NFL network, the NFL website, if one pulls out or if two pull out, and people are looking at it because they've heard rumblings, because this is far more serious than people in the middle of it want to acknowledge. The owners, however, according to John King at CNN, and I think this is true only because I think it's true, not because, CNN's credibility, fake news, and all over the place. But this, I think, is right. I think they know. I think they know. And even though they know, they are siding with the players. They're making a calculation. Do not doubt me when I tell you they're scared over the choice they have to make. But they are choosing to side, to be seen siding with the players. How many NFL owners endorsed Barack Obama in 2008? There were a few. Why do you think that is? If your locker room is 75% African American, and you publicly are holding fundraisers for who was it, Romney, or if you are donating to Romney, but if you're out there supporting Obama, isn't it going to make you that much more popular in your own locker room if you're the owner? I'm just asking it. I'm throwing it out there as a think piece. But, I mean, it makes sense to me that would happen. In this case, they're siding with the players because they're judging that if some fans tune out and don't show up, that's temporary. But if the players all unify and don't show up on a Sunday, then there's no product, and then there's nothing to sell, and then there's no TV money, and then there's trouble. And I know that's the decision they're making, but they know. Now, note what none of them think is an option. These people are all employees. This is workplace. And apparently, I could be wrong about this, I may not be fully informed, but apparently there isn't, well, that I know of, there isn't an owner or an organization which will tell its players, you're standing. For the sake of this team, for the sake of this league, for the sake of our business enterprise here, you are standing. And if you've got a problem, we'll deal with it some other way. I've had bosses tell me what I can and can't do all years of my life, except the last 29, because I haven't had one. Okay, so the Ravens PA announcer asked for the audience to pray for justice, peace, equality, and unity. How many fans remember that this league pretty much kicked Tim Tebow out of it because he prayed in public? Remember that? Tim Tebow would take a knee after a touchdown or after a good play or something. And remember how the league got nervous? The TV announcers got nervous at this public display of worship. And now look. We're asking the fans to pray for, not God. We're pray for justice, peace, equality, unity. Why don't you throw climate change in there? Cover every base. The left outside linebacker for the Baltimore Ravens is number 55, Terrell Suggs. His nickname is T-Sizzle. And he said after the game yesterday, we don't want anybody to lose the narrative of why we are doing it. We don't want people to think that we're disrespecting the flag or the military or anything like that. Mr. Suggs, that's exactly what Colin Kaepernick said he was doing. And it is unity with Colin Kaepernick that is driving the actions of the players who are taking a knee or linking arms or not standing for the national anthem. If you're not disrespecting the flag or the military or anything like that, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And this is what I say constitutes, everybody's backtracking now. I mean, it started out full bore. Unity, solidarity with Kaepernick. And then it didn't go the way the left thought it was going to go. The left thinks everybody thinks like they do, which means everybody supports the players. Everybody thinks America's racist. Everybody thinks that cops kill people indiscriminately. Everybody thinks the cops are racist. Everybody thinks hands up, don't shoot. No, most people don't think any of that and resent having it jammed down their throats when they don't want any of this kind of politicization with the game they love. So now backtracking, so we don't want people to think we're disrespecting the flag or the military. Well, why do it then? With whom are you in solidarity? If it isn't Kaepernick, then what are you doing? Because Mr. Suggs, Terrell Suggs-Weather is a great player. And he's an intimidating guy. He's had 2 Achilles injuries and has come back from them. But all this is doing is hurting the National Football League, which is the objective of the people who support this. I'm not saying the players are trying to hurt the league. They may. Hell, I don't know. I don't know what they know and don't, but I'm telling you, this is hurting the NFL, and that's the objective. The objective is not to change the cops. The objective is not to raise consciousness. The objective is not to, it's to hurt the NFL. The left, the NFL sees the NFL as a problem. It stands in opposition to what the left wants this country to be and known for. The NFL contains all these things that on college campuses are trying to be weeded out. Masculinity, white privilege in terms of the ownership, patriotism, rugged individualism, men being men, all these things that the left is trying to scrub and erase as identifying factors for the United States. And whether the players know it or not, they're unwittingly helping this along. Yahoo Sports, Yahoo News, Yahoo Sports, don't ever confuse them with people like Ronald Reagan or me. Exclusive poll, Yahoo Finance poll, suggests the NFL has an enduring problem on its hands. Not a temporary, but enduring. They interviewed 9,000 people at Yahoo Sports. They found that nearly 62% of 9,056 people told them they plan to watch less pro football in response to the anthem controversy. In addition to 62% say they're going to watch less, 36% said they're going to spend less. They're going to buy less NFL merchandise. 32% have chosen not to attend a game that they otherwise would have gone to. So those people show up disguised as empty seats. Do you think that it's wrong for players to kneel during the anthem? 77% yes. And yet the left and the sports drive-bys and others think the country agrees with the players. If the anthem controversy caused NFL owners and players lasting financial harm, 10% say it would bum them out, 30% say they wouldn't care, 48% said they would be pleased. If the anthem controversy caused the owners and players lasting financial harm. Guys, this isn't tracking in your direction. And your substitute here of kneeling while linking and then standing in time for the entire anthem, it isn't the solution. And all the people in the sports drive-bys and some of the player man of the ownership, we got a great idea here. We can do both. You can, but it isn't going to work. Here is Henry in Portland, Maine. Henry, glad you called. Thank you for waiting. Hi.
Oh, thank you. A couple of quick points. The reason why the Baltimore fans booed is because first the players disrespected the flag and the country. Now they're disrespecting God because they're using God as a tool. And that's the only thing that they're using it for, because I don't think they really care. And then the other thing is that so now high school players and little lad football players were taking knees to protest a couple weeks ago. So now if they take a knee to pray, I'm sure the left is going to be totally happy with football players now taking the knee to pray.
Right.
And so, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So let's see what happens with that. How many football players on the high school level are going to be suspended for praying, but they're just following the lead?
Well, it's a good point, because you can't pray at many high school commencements now, remember? That's not new. That goes way, way. You can't pray because not everybody is religious, and you can't force your religion on people by having commencement prayers. You can't do moment of silence at commencement, graduation, this kind of thing. You can't do it because not everybody there is religious. We know that was Cahokia, Illinois, a bunch of 8th grade football players have begun emulating the NFL and have been kneeling during the anthem. You know the one Steeler player in Chicago? I'm sorry, it's Steelers player, Antonio Villanueva. Alejandro Villanueva. He was the only Steeler who was seen standing for the anthem a couple of weeks ago in Chicago, 2 Sundays ago. He was asked, he's continually sought out by the media since that happened, and he's made nervous by it. He's an Army Special Forces soldier, and those guys have a lot of things drilled out of them. They're not supposed to be standout. They're not supposed to stand above and beyond everybody else. They're supposed to blend in. It's part and parcel of the training. He's very nervous being a focal point here. And I don't know to whom he said this, but I found these quotes. I think these are fascinating quotes. Listen to what he said. I think in life, you're not prepared for a lot of things. I don't think you're prepared to have a kid. I don't think you're prepared to get married. I don't think you're prepared to start one day in the NFL. I just think it's one of these things that you have to take in stride and do your best. And you have to stick to your family values, stick to the things that you've learned throughout your life, and try to make the best possible decision. I am not a hero. I didn't do anything in the military that was outstanding. If you were to compare me to my peers, I was average at best. This was a very unfortunate chain of events, and I just tried my best. This is his explanation to why he ended up being the only guy seen standing for the anthem in Chicago. But what about this? I think in life you're not prepared for a lot of things. Not prepared to have a kid, not prepared to get married. And you're not prepared to actually start one day, make the starting lineup in the NFL. But when it happens, you use the best you have to make the right decisions. And I think that's so on the money. There's some things you can't prepare for. There isn't a manual on a lot of things in life. You just have to do it, and you learn by doing it. And that's where your foundational base guides you, your morality, your virtue, your sense of right and wrong, your conscience. You know what your conscience is? Everybody has one. It's just that in many people it's been allowed to be covered up, covered over, and ignored. But your conscience is the little voice in your head that always tells you whether what you're doing is right or wrong. Everybody has one. I say everybody. I mean, sure, probably some sick individuals with an exception who don't. But it could be said, I think George Washington, in a way, said it, that conscience, your conscience, is where your discipline is. And, most people are going to have many failings in that area. But Villanueva is saying, since there's no real way to prep for so many monumental things that happen to you as a human being, you just have to do your best at the time. Make the best possible decision. Anyway, I'm not going to get to it, but I want to read this headline. So see what you think of this headline. Sex change regret. Gender reversal surgery is on the rise, so why aren't we talking about it? It's in the UK Telegraph. And there's another headline that, well, there might not be any real value in simply telling you the headline and letting it hang there for a day. Well, it's about the rising incidence of illness that is being ignored, not being reported regarding the anus. Right. So, we'll be back. Don't go away. So I got a note from Paul Shanklin, a white comedian Paul Shanklin, who does the parodies and comedy bits that we do here on the program. He said what's wrong with that thing in Baltimore was that everybody thinks we've already got that stuff. The idea of having to pray for these things, it's insulting. We have peace, we have justice, we have all these. It's the left-wing diatribe that the country is flawed, and we have to accept the premise that the country is flawed and then pray for it. And that's, it's a great point. I mean, one of the dividing lines is, on the left, this is an imperfect country and it's deeply flawed because we say so. And if you don't agree with them, then you're part of the problem. And there are a lot of us very proud of the country and don't believe we're deeply flawed, but we're not perfect either. But the left-wing agenda and the assumption that what they say is, and therefore we must deal with it as, that's what's offensive. And I have no doubt that was part of the reason for the booing that was happening in Baltimore. That was before the anthem even started. I'll tell you what, in addition to the Puerto Rico stack, there's all kinds of stuff. Even though I knew Las Vegas was going to dominate, I had a whole 3 hours worth of material prepped and ready to go. So that just goes on the yesterday's stack. We'll try to get to as much of it as we can because all kinds of stuff going to happen between now and then tomorrow that we have to stay on top of, which we always do. Thanks for being with us, folks. Always great to be back here. And we'll see you tomorrow. 21-hour break. Fastest 21 hours or longest, depending, you'll ever have.